joining me in the room podcast to talk about his huge knockout at BKFC, Knuckle Mania 3 last Friday night, is Josh. Stay down, Watson. Josh, man, I appreciate the time. I know your phone has been ringing off the hook for people having a chance to talk to you, but thanks for coming on the show, man. Congratulations on a huge knockout last week, man.
Thank you.
Bro, it's been a long journey, man. You had your last MMA fight in New England, took many years off, jumped into BKFC, and man, you had the biggest knockout of your career over Greg Hardy, man. Let's talk about the journey. And first, let's talk about that big gap in your fighting career, man. You stopped MMA, took some years off, and you got back to bare-knuckle boxing, man. What was the layoff? And let's talk about that time in between fighting.
Well, biggest reason for the time off was work. You know, I'm doing that whole adulting thing. And even though I didn't have like a spectacular record, I wasn't able to fight. Like, none of my fights were easy. I was always going against tough guys because even without the tough record or the good record, I'm intimidating and scary and all that shit. So so everybody that I was facing was training their asses off more than I had the ability to. I didn't have the schedule to train at that elite level to compete where my record put me at. So I wasn't able to compete at that level. So that was the bigger reason I'm stopping, was just, I was over it. I was done chasing the dream and had to, start adulting, buy a house, get a car, do all that stuff, like actually work enough to get better things in my life rather than working just enough to scrape by, so that I had the schedule freed up so I could train as much as I could. So that was basically the main reason for the long layover.
Well, when you started, what was the decision to get back into it? And what was the decision to go into bare-knuckle boxing instead of, taking off where you left off in your MMA career?
As soon as I saw bare-knuckle, I wanted to do it. Just, I don't know, the brutality of it, something just that to me, I wanted to do. After the pandemic, I was watching a lot of guys that started training after me were getting their black belts and jiu-jitsu promotions. I was like, you know what? I got nothing going on. I'm not working. I might as well go to the gym. So I went in purely to work on my jiu-jitsu. That was it. And I think my second day there, my coach asked me if I had gloves with me because he needed someone to spar with Frank Mir. And I was like, no. He's like, I'll give you some. I'm like, I don't have a mouthpiece, so I'll bring that shit tomorrow, I guess. And then come to find out, Frank was trying to get a bare-knuckle fight. And I was like, fuck it, I'll ride his coattails right into it. And so, yeah, it quickly got changed of my trajectory of what I was doing from working on my belts to training again. I helped him get ready for both of his Triller fights. One of his main sparring partners for all that, which I guess made it kind of easy of a transition for me to do boxing before I had to compete at boxing, because everything in my mind was still MMA. But the whole reason even when Masvidal opened up his game bred and it was bare-knuckle MMA, that didn't have that same appeal to me because my age, my body, I don't have the want to wrestle motherfuckers. I think I trained MMA one day with Mir, and we both went to kick each other at the same time, and he kicked me in the knee and folded me, and I'm like, yeah, this is why I don't do this shit no more. Like, I'm just gonna box only, like, save my legs, save my back, save my hips. Like, I can just throw hands and survive. I just got to keep two things healthy, not my entire body, really.
Well, that first bare knuckle fight, man, literally what, seven years later, 8 years later, man, how'd it feel getting back into competition and getting
You
back?
know, that was aside from being thrown somebody who I knew nothing about and who kind of had way more experience than I would have taken a fight had I known. It was definitely a to go from a regional smaller show. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people there, but just the production value. A regionally smaller show to fast forward 8 years to being on the biggest bare knuckle card or production there is. There was a moment of being starstruck. Um, it was weird. It felt like an out of body experience. I definitely didn't. My coach afterwards is like, I yelled this. He's like, did you hear me? I'm like, didn't hear you say a fucking word. Not a single word. He's like, I knew it because like he was 2 feet away from me on the other side of the ropes. And he said it took me 5 times saying your name for you to even turn around. So, and then the goal was to not necessarily start off the way I started off this fight, like coming off the line, but it was to start off a whole lot more aggressive. And it wasn't there. Nothing in my game plan was there. It was, like it was an out of body experience. I was playing a video game and I wasn't in control.
Well, my friend, you came back that second fight and you were in control. You had a minute 24 first round knockout in that fight, man. What was the difference in training, or was it the mindset when you went in there that second time?
A little bit different of a mindset. Just you know, there's a lot of talk about how very few people, um, have great success on their first BKFC fight. And obviously a lot of the bigger names that have come from like UFC or other areas, they've been consistently competing. But when people are competing at a smaller level and they jump to this bigger stage, they kind of all have this, like in the UFC, they call it stage fright. Like being on that biggest stage, and it's not necessarily fright, but it's more like just a freeze up. And it happens often. And it was way more comfortable the second time around. Um, as comfortable as it can be, and even like this third time, just a lot more comfortable in the situation. Um, and for the fact of I bought just 6 months ago, and even in my MMA career, that was a very fast turnaround because I only had 11 MMA fights over the span of um
It had to be about 10 years, right?
about yeah. No, a little 2007 to 2000. You said my last one was in 2011.
2013. So about 8 years, a little over 8 years or
Yeah,
so.
8 years to have an 11 fights.
Yeah.
That's not being very active. And that goes back to my body. Like I almost had a surgery almost between every single fight. So there was coming back that fast on a bare knuckle one was beneficial because I'm still in the groove.
Now coming back to that third fight, you are going against Greg Hardy. How did that matchup come about? I mean, you know, that was their guy. They were trying to, of course, promote him. Greg Hardy, big name coming out of the UFC. Man, when this fight was announced or put together, what was your thoughts on it? Was it, was the mindset there, or was it, you have to get over that hurdle again because now you're fighting basically a superstar in the eyes of the MMA world and just the combat fighting community?
I mean, I knew that my first opponent, Brian Etchison, he is tougher than Greg Hardy was going to be. After with all of his amateur fights that weren't listed anywhere, I just knew like Greg Hardy didn't like to get touched. He don't like to get touched with boxing gloves, so I knew he wasn't going to like to get touched with bare knuckles. Um, Well, I got asked about the fight, and I talked to my trainer, and I was like, "Go look up video of him," because my trainer, he's a video whiz. He breaks down video and just can tell you, like, all right, every fourth steps he does this, like he just like weird stuff that most people don't see. And I was like, tell me, like, is this a winnable fight for me? And he did it. He looked it up, and he's like, "Yeah, we got this. We can do this." I'm like, "All right, cool." Like that's the confidence I need. If my coach is like, "Oh, I don't know," well, then it's like now I have
Yeah.
to convince him as well as myself. When my coach says, "Yeah, we got this," it's like, "All right, cool. We're both already convinced. We're already on board." I just knew all I had to do was touch him, and he wasn't going to last very long.
Well, in that fight, man, second round, 19 seconds, you touched him and you touched him very violently, man. What did you feel in that fight? Was it, were you feeling what your coach was saying in the first round? Like, you're better than this guy. Could you feel that? What was the thought through that first round?
First, the number one thought for the first round was I can't see shit. I got poked in the eye. I came out, attacked him. We first separated. The first jab he threw, he poked me in the right eye, and it was basically blind for a solid minute 15 maybe, and I couldn't do shit with it. That's why I was like overreactive of movements. Like he would faint and I would like break the hips. Like I was like jumping out because I couldn't see shit. So that made it very difficult. And like when you're training and when you're working, like, or better yet, when you're fighting and you get really, really tense because you're not and you're all responsive to that person's movement and you're not relaxed, you gas hard. And that made me gas that much more because I was like in a panic. And as you can tell, I've been sick for weeks, so that wasn't helping anything. But yeah, it made me panic, and so it took me going into about halfway through the round. Once I started being able to see stuff, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better. He threw me on the ground. I was like, all right, cool. I'm just gonna take my sweet ass time getting up. Then we clinched. I was like, I'm not even fighting the clinch. I'm just using this time to recover my vision. And then I was like, all right, cool, I got it. Let's do this. Like, I'm feeling good now. And, and that shows because I knocked him down at the end of the round. And that had to do a lot with the fact that I could see then versus the whole first half of the fight.
Well, in between rounds, you're sitting down, your coach. I would imagine you could hear him well in this fight. You're zoned in at this point. What was said in between rounds? Could you feel, the finish coming up? Did you know, you were definitely going to catch him going into that second round?
Well, his biggest thing and our biggest thing in camp was lateral movement, move. Not just sit in front of him. There was one point in the fight I remember because we had this. The whole goal was to not stand in front of him for more than 3 seconds. So my coach would yell out 3, which to most people says I'm gonna throw a hook. Instead, for me, that was me to get the fuck out of the way, like move. So it was kind of like a little bit of head games, but I knew what the message meant. But yeah, lateral movement, and realistically, like we didn't say like, oh yeah, we're putting them down. It was, I mean, everybody knew it was a question if I was getting let out of into the second round because of the cut on my forehead. And I knew I didn't have very much time left. Not to mention, I mean, realistically speaking, if I didn't have the cut or I did have the cut, I went about it the same way. I'm always looking for the knockout. There's always that. I'm just trying to stop this fight right now. But I knew in the back of my head that I needed to stop it because all he had to do was contact me probably 1-2 times on that spot, and it would have made it 10 times worse, and they probably would have stopped the fight. So, there was reason to get it done quickly.
Well, 19 seconds is pretty quick going into that second round. What'd you feel when you felt that connection, when you got inside and you landed that and you saw him drop? What was that feeling? What was going through your mind, man?
Well, when I dropped him the first time in the first round, I was like, all right, I know he's getting back up. Like that was like a glancing shot. Plus the way he went down, I'm like, he's getting back up. No thoughts. When I hit him in the second round, I knew immediately he was done. Like I've been in for a minute. I've been, my nickname's been Stay Down for a while. I got him tattooed on my knuckles, and there's always been the talk of I need that picture where I'm just standing there holding my knuckles up, telling him stay down. And I was like, boom, here it is. He's not getting up. I'm doing it, and it's like, and even better if I do it and he does get up, cool, because I'm gonna put his ass back down, and then therefore it'll like double it up and be like, stay the fuck down, you know. But no, I knew he was done. It was over, and just I don't know, pure exhilaration. Like I knew that coming into it that this was a life-changing fight for me. It was going to change the trajectory of everything. Like, I wish this happened 10 years ago because I'd be like, cool, I quit my job. Like, let's make a run at it, And, this late in my career, I doubt I'll make bigger waves than that. But especially being his first fight or only fight BKFC, because from what I hear, he's not going to do it anymore. So
one and done. You retired him already, my friend.
I mean, he doesn't like to get punched. He's gonna go back to boxing. He probably makes more money boxing, and it's it's a glove, and he has less of a risk of getting knocked out.
Well, you mentioned that you might not go too much farther at your age. I mean, that's a big knockout, and it only takes one punch in BKFC, bare knuckle. It's an exciting couple 2-3 minutes in there, my man. You could make waves, bro. I mean, you're blasting off from a huge knockout. There's a lot of people that were hoping that Greg got knocked out in that fight. I mean, I know he has fans.
Yeah.
I know he has fans, but he has a lot of haters out there too. So you became an instant hero after you put his lights out, man. And I'm sure social media and all the love you're getting from fans and new fans, man, is elevating you. Is there passion in there to make it like maybe get a shot at the champ one day in the weight class?
Yeah, I mean, it does. It motivates me. It does lift me up because like you said in the very beginning, I have a humongous following in New England, and it's that following that really pushes me and motivates me all the time. And that's the part too that scares me because back in the day when you'd fight, you're like, whatever. If I lose, I got time to make up for it. Now it's like I lose and there isn't time. Like I'm at the end. Like I don't want to. Not necessarily saying like I won't end on a loss, but I'm saying like I don't want to end on that disappointing note, and and just kind of like leave it just out there. And so I don't know, like I've been saying for a while now, I got like one more in me, one more in me, one more in me. But the main goal is to have my retirement fight in either Vegas or in New England. They're trying to get it someplace big in New England. And sadly, I already played that hand and told the president and the matchmaker this. So I think they might hold out on me fighting in those locations so they can control me for a bit longer. But I don't know if Vegas gets sanctioned. I mean, it'd be stupid for me not to be on the first Vegas card, considering I live here and I can only foresee Christine being on that card and like one or two others, like because they live so close or they have connections to Vegas. So I mean, that and the same thing. If there's a card in New England, I'm gonna be on it. I mean, I fucking basically single-handedly sold out the Portland Expo by myself back in 2011 or some shit. So, I want to fight in front of my friends.
Excellent.
family.
Do you still come to New England and train at all, or like what's your association with New England at this point?
I went, sadly, the last two times I've gotten to come home were for funerals,
Oh,
not for
sorry about that.
pleasure. And, but the last time I was home, I swung by the academy. Actually, I went to one of the NEF events, ran into Jay, and, he's like, oh, I'll come by Saturday morning, open gym. So I went by, and of course, everybody's in their gi, and I'm like, I need a fucking gi. So, but no, it was cool. It was fun rolling with a bunch of the old people that, no, old people, the, old teammates that have been around forever. But other than that, no, I don't really get a chance to because when I do come home, it's very limited amount of time. And actually, take that back. When I came home for, I think, for 4th of July, like 3 years ago, I think that's when I got to roll with Sean Durfee, went to his school, and him and I worked out for like a solid hour together, fresh off the airplane. So, I mean, I get in a little bit, mainly because I'm trying to stay moving, but I don't really go home to train.
Okay, my man. Well, as far as what's in the future for you, you mentioned BKFC might like to hold out on you a little bit, hold you a little bit. They see value in you, my man. What are you expecting? Do you have a timeline? You mentioned
Well,
New England and Vegas. When do you want to get back in there? The fights in between. Your second fight and third fight, there wasn't much time in between there. What are you looking for to stay busy?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's much of what I'm looking for. It's what they're looking for. Um, I don't know if you caught it. I got a good picture of me like reaching through the ropes, yelling at Dave Feldman, the president, being like, "Hey, give me that knockout of the night." And he even says, "I'll do you one better. I'll get you a bigger fight in April."
Well,
So they're already trying to get me a fight in April. I don't know if I'll physically be up to par on that, considering that bad boy is probably a good 4 weeks away from getting punched. So in a 10-week window, taking four of them away and not being able to get hits kind of rough, but not terrible. We'll see. Still got a few more doctor's appointments to hit up to make sure that I'm healthy enough to continue to go.
Well, my friend, God, there's a upside to you getting back in that ring, bro. A lot of people waiting to see what comes out of you next. New England's definitely interested in whatever's going on with you, my man. As soon as that card was announced. And God, right after that knockout, New England was exploding. Gyms were jumping in for joy. There's a lot of people here that, were amateur fighters that are now seasoned pros. Some of them that are, made it to the UFC from New England that were on cards that you were on as, some of your last fights in New England that these guys hold you as basically royalty, man. It's incredible to see.
Yeah, I mean it's overwhelming at times, just because of being like I'm humble. I don't like view myself as that, like being held up. But when I just get the shit ton of messages and all the love online, it's overwhelming at times. And it's funny too because I guess my bigger kind of throwback is I don't even know what full force it was, but it was back in 2007. I believe it was my second pro fight. It was the card in Boxborough. It was John Jones's first pro fight, and then Tom Lawler was on that card. Travis Bartlett. I think there was one other bigger name on that card. That card was stacked with names.
Like I said, man, you fought with killers, some champions in the UFC. I mean, there is an army of ladies and gentlemen in New England that have thrived in the MMA game, and man, you're thriving not only in the fighting game, but out of New England in Vegas where you are and making waves in BKFC, man. So congratulations on the journey, getting back in there, man, and having the biggest knockout of your career and, man, putting you on the map of some of them scarier dudes in the BKFC heavyweight division.
Thank you.
Last thing, Josh, man, shout out social media. I mean, I know you're getting flooded with calls, interviews, and stuff, man. And let's keep the ball rolling, man. Let's roll you into April if you're ready, or if not, the next card and a huge, another matchup, man. So anything you want to say, social media,
I mean,
friends, everything.
my shout outs are always the same, and we've touched on it. It's that support system. It's those people that got my back, and they got my back, realistically for no reason other than, you know, I try to do right by them. And they always motivate me and push me and always keep me trying to do the right thing, and that's the biggest thing, and that's what I love. So it's always them. Whenever I'm shouting out, I'm always talking about my fans because fuck fans, my friends and my family. That's the difference between like I'll never as big as this is, I'll never outgrow who I am and the fact that like sure other guys in the UFC, they have hundreds of thousands of fans. I have a few thousand fans, and I feel that they are friends because they're on my friends list. We interact. I take it upon myself to interact with every single message being sent to me, every single comment on my stuff. I try to respond to. I try to interact with everything because, why am I going to change? That's how it's always been. Why am I changing? Just because I got a good knockout.
Excellent, my man. Well said, man. Respect you, bro. Congratulations on that huge victory, man. And we can't wait to see what's next here and around the country and the world, man, because you really opened a lot of eyes, man, and gained thousands, tens of thousands of fans last Friday night, man. So congratulations, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate it.